Most people only give Naples a few hours, a day, tops. They arrive, they grab a pizza da Michele, or perhaps they hit Quartieri Spagnoli, see a castle, and then by dinner they're on their way to the Amalfi Coast. And I understand I'm guilty of that too. My first trip to Naples was actually a stopover on the way to the Amalfi Coast, but fortunately, I was stopped by a group of Neapolitans. One of them is my husband now. About 4 years later, I'm still here. I'm Amby. I moved from California to Naples, Italy in 2022, and I'm starting to see Naples go from a place that's just a stopover to a place where people are genuinely curious about. So let's talk about why, and let's talk about what changes if you give Naples at least a few days instead of a few hours, and also why it is especially important to do a more slow travel approach to visiting Naples in 2026 and 2027. Also, if you're not already, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Amby for daily glimpses into my life here. And you can also join me on Spotify, Amby in Naples, if you want to listen to the show on the go. Here's the honest version of what most people's Naples itinerary actually looks like. Well, it's not an itinerary, it's a transfer. You get to Naples. You either arrive by plane, you're at Garibaldi Station, or you roll up on a cruise ship. From there, you have a few hours. Like I said earlier, you go grab a pizza, you go to Quartieri Spagnoli, you go to the port, you see Castel dell'Uovo. Perhaps you walk on that main stretch in Spacca Napoli, you buy some touristy knickknacks, and then you're off to the Amalfi Coast. It's like Naples is seen as the thing on the way to the Amalfi Coast, or to Pompeii, to Capri, but it's not seen as its own destination. And I can't blame all of the tourists. It's just how the routes have been built. Every guide funnels people south fast. But in 2026 and 2027, things are slowly changing, and here's why. For starters, the America's Cup, a massive sailing competition, is happening right here in the Gulf of Napoli in 2027. And now, in 2026, the pre-regattas are happening. This is a huge opportunity for Naples because it means people from all around the world, and especially people with money, because sailing is not a cheap sport, are going to come to Naples. It's also a huge push for the city to beautify itself. I'm not sure if this is related to the pre-regattas, but even yesterday I looked out the window and Naples was looking like, I don't know, what's that place in France? Saint-Tropez. There were so many massive, important looking yachts in the water. Naples just crossed 20 million visitors for the first time, and the city is aiming for even more visitors this year. So that means that the opportunity window to visit Naples before it gets Amalfi level crowded is smaller than most people realize. And it's not just Naples. Salerno, right next door, just became one of the most searched destinations in Italy. So that's a little insight as to where the attention on this whole region is starting to go. And that's not to say that people are going to stop going to the Amalfi Coast, Capri, Sorrento. Of course not. Those are gorgeous places and you should definitely go there. But I think that people are starting to realize the importance of slower travel and starting to actually get to know a place. I think people are interested in culture. People are tired of just Instagrammable destinations. People are looking for something a little bit deeper. So let's say you booked a cruise and you stop in Naples for a day. Well, what do you miss? Honestly, almost all of it. Naples has so much to see and do. I couldn't possibly say all of it in a quick 10-minute video, but you should definitely check out my blog. I have a ton of resources and I will link it in the show notes. But just off the top of my head, some wonderful Naples things that a day tripper could never get to. Vomero, cute, pedestrian-friendly neighborhood, al fresco dining, love it. Chiaia, Baretti, the zone in Chiaia is a great spot for aperitivo, and in the evening it gets really fun. That's where most of the locals I know go out in the evenings. Posillipo is gorgeous for the views. We have Chiaro, which is a wonderful little, how do I say it? It's like a small seaside neighborhood subsect of Posillipo, and a little fancy. But more than just specific destinations, it's also the small things, like going to the same cafe every day, getting espresso al banco, learning the names of the baristas, going to the fruttivendolo, getting your fresh fruits and veggies, learning the names of the vendors there, learning about what's in season, and following your nose as the aroma of amazing fresh baked cornetti wafts out of a panificio early in the morning, and you just stumble across into a little hole in the wall place, have chiacchiere, a little chit chat with the locals, going to Ciro's, getting a hot grappa, laying out on un lettino at Bagno Elena, discovering an ancient crypt underground in Sanità. None of that shows up if you're racing to catch a train. It's not a landmark, it is a rhythm. And you cannot photograph a rhythm. You can't fully understand the essence of Napoli, its cuore, its heart, if you're just coming here for max a day. It takes time. It takes a little digging underneath the surface. People ask me how many days you actually need in Naples. Honestly, there's no rule, but at least a couple. Here's how I would think about it. It's not so much the number of nights as it is how much time do you need to really get to know and like understand the essence of a place. I feel like slow traveling is when you stay somewhere where you eat at the same place more than once, you're going to the same cafe multiple times in the morning, you're befriending the barista, you're walking past the same locals in the morning, perhaps you see the same cute little toy poodle multiple times, perhaps you learn that toy poodle's name. That could be a few days, it could be a month, but it's certainly not a few hours between trains. I think it's hard because Americans have such limited vacation time, so that when you get to Italy, you want to see everything you can in like 5 days, but how can you possibly see a whole country in 5 days when you can't even see a full city in 5 days? So I would come, I would make a trip dedicated to Campania. I would do several days at least in Naples, and then I would also explore the islands, and not just Capri. I would explore Procida, I would spend a few nights on Ischia. Yes, I would see Sorrento. I would spend a few days in the Amalfi coast, and not just Positano. I would explore Conca di Marini, Praiano. There are just so many amazing places in the Amalfi coast that like the major tourist guides don't cover. If you've heard that Naples is unsafe and that's the reason that you haven't given it more than a layover, I understand where you're coming from. There is a lot of talk in the media. When you arrive at the Garibaldi train station, it can feel a bit hectic right away. However, I have a whole video on safety in Naples, and as a woman who's been living here for over 4 years, I can tell you that I feel safer here, honestly, than I did in California. And also, just a quick stat, Florence, Milan, and Rome all have higher crime rates than Naples. Yes, Naples is a pretty chaotic city, but it's a dichotomy. Like, you can find everything in Naples. You can find ultra luxe, pristine villas, and you can also find like super humble markets. It's got it all. But you cannot see it all in a day. If you come for just a day, all you're gonna get to see is like the boopity boppity pizza pasta version that you see on Via Tribunali. So Insomma, as we would say in Italian, if you are planning a trip to southern Italy, all I'm asking is that you give Naples more than a day. Give it a few, okay? Really get to know this place because it is too good to skip. Especially if you are coming in 2026 and 2027 because the America's Cup is gonna be happening and I think it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm Amby. I post honest videos every week about life in southern Italy. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you next week. Ciao!